Whoa! Jeff and Jeremy in the morning.
What's up, Brendan Gough? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good, but why are you wearing an Oregon hat? Did you go to school there?
I didn't. No, my wife.
God, I hate the Ducks.
Do you?
Oh, I'm a Coug, man. I can't stand the Ducks.
Yeah,
Jeff doesn't like them either.
We went to Washington State University, and they...
I think I hate them as much as I hate the Huskies.
They most of the time have our number, so that's why.
So
I don't like them.
I'm gonna defend myself a little bit here. I don't follow college sports very very closely. In fact, when my wife and I first met, the first question she asked me, first question out of her mouth, was what was my favorite college football team, and my answer was I'm not sure, but I hate USC, and she goes, we can deal with that. So the Oregon hat actually is. Her family has very deep ties to Oregon.
Okay.
Her great grandfather actually was the head football coach.
Oh, wow.
He was the athletic director. They're like top of the line training facility that, I'm sure Nike paid for.
Yes.
But it's called the Casanova Center. That was her great grandfather.
Wow.
So deep ties to Oregon.
Yeah. So that's okay. Yeah, it's okay if you rep.
Yeah. Wife support.
I understand. I totally understand.
All right, I just had to give you a hard time.
That's okay.
It's okay because we beat them last year on live TV after ESPN Game Day came to campus. So that was a good day.
In reality, I just couldn't find my Giants hat.
When you come in, we would normally say Brendan Gough of Central Coast Brewing, and I don't know what to say you're with now.
Oh, yeah. Things are changing.
I saw a Facebook post the other day, and I was like, that's strange and kind of out of left field. That you are moving on and starting a venture of your own?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
The rumors are true. So, it's no bad blood between me and CCB. I've known George for almost 20 years. Still consider him a friend. All the brewers that I train there are, still very special people to me. It was kind of one of those things where it was the perfect storm. My wife's office moved up to Atascadero. She hated traveling. She was getting up at 6. We were kind of looking around at building a beer bar, something without a brewery, maybe potentially they had one down the road. That we or room in that area to maybe add on to it later or something, kind of give her somewhere to go and something else to do now. As I was kind of scratching around at, the commercial places that were available, we see that the old Tappet location, which is owned by Santa Maria Brewing, is on the market.
Now that's over by the airport in San Luis Obispo, but off Buckley Road or a road off Buckley Road? Or?
It's off Tank Farm.
Oh, Tank Farm. Okay.
And so if you're coming from Broad and then you hit Tank Farm, there's that first left light, like in the Mind Body.
Yes.
I think that's Mind Body.
You're right.
And then it's the next left after it without a light. It's over that little bridge.
Okay, sure.
But it's very close to the Broad Street side.
Have you ever been to Tappet? I've never actually been to the tasting room.
I've been out there, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a really, 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 really cool space. Now,
it is. When Tappet was running it, they used to have concerts out on the deck.
Yeah.
It was they would get 75, 80 people out there, but it was a really cool outdoor space.
Yeah. And I think you could probably fit 200 or 300 people back there. I'd have to check with the fire department with what we're allowed to do.
Just ask for forgiveness.
But yeah, there's a really cool stage in the back and a really, really cool outdoor patio, big fire pit. No personal offense, but the branding from Tappet, it was just, all the diamond plated and the bright orange and the girls on the fire truck shooting foam with their booty
when they first came out, they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They were sponsoring NHRA, Top Fuel, Nitro Funny Cars. They had that fire truck. Do you get the fire truck?
I have not requested the fire truck.
Can I get the fire truck? I want the radio station to have that.
Get it for Jeremy.
Freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. No, man, we want, the direction of our brand is going to be much, much, much different than Tappet. Certainly Santa Maria, who owns Tappet now, which is
right.
So Santa Maria bought Tappet about a year ago, and we're actually buying that location. It's an asset purchase, so we're just buying the equipment. Mm-hmm. And we're rebranding as Liquid Gravity Brewing Company. You can go follow us on Instagram at Liquid Gravity Brewing Co. And I believe the Facebook page is just Liquid Gravity Brewing Company. But, we're going to tear down all the diamond plate and put some fresh paint on it, redo the outdoor area, ideally long term, build some kind of pergolas out there and make it a space that's ours. And our branding is going to be focused a lot more on just not taking ourselves too seriously, having some fun with it.
Yeah, sure. So you're going to you're not doing a bar, you're doing a brewery. You're going to be making beer.
It's a big brewery.
And obviously you'll have a tasting bar there and people can come in and taste.
Yeah,
and all that kind of
big
stuff.
brewery with a tasting room.
All right,
yeah.
let's take a time out for a second from that. Let's go back to George, because we all know George. George, I've bought cars from George. I've known George back when we made our own beer there. Actually, you helped Jeff and I make a beer that we entered into some beer festival. And
we still argue
Falcon
about
Good
whether or
Pale
not it
Ale.
was good.
I thought it tasted good. We loved it.
It was hoppy.
Yeah, it was super good.
You like hoppy beers. It was hoppy.
But anyways, I mean, but you've been there from the beginning when it was a kind of a custom go make your own brew. And that was kind of the business model. You used to go to Central Coast Brew and you could make your own, little keg of brew and you guys would help them along and then they could bottle it and take it. And obviously you and George were ready to take it to the next level. Yeah, I know that you had worked at Firestone previously and you were a serious brewer. You didn't want to sit there and make other people's, little projects or hobbies. Right. So, and you did. I mean, you went and you won the Great American Beer Festival with the Monterey Street Pale Ale. I mean, number of medals, awards, accolades. And so you've really grown that place to the point where you were able to open a second brewery. And I think if you haven't been there, you got to check that out on Higuera Street. So, obviously I know that relationship with George is pretty tight. I know you guys have a great working relationship and a friendship. So what was it like when you had to sit down with George? Where did you do it at? And you had to tell him, well, it's time. Or had you been kind of leaking it to him all along? Like, hey, I'm looking to do something.
No, man. It's like I said, it was one of those things where the opportunity came up. This is an opportunity for me and my wife, to have.
That's everybody's texting you.
Turn that off here.
That's
Hold
okay.
on. I'm sorry.
What do the texts say? Can you read any of them?
Probably my wife telling me to, I don't know.
Be quiet.
Shut up. Yeah.
Well, if you don't want to answer any of these questions, you don't have to. I was just kind of curious what it was like when you had to sit down and tell George that, you were going to be leaving, because I know that you're a great asset to him, and I'm sure he would say that.
It was, I think it was tough. It was tough for both of us. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't any bad blood. It was just, it was an opportunity for me and my wife to, start a project that was ours from the beginning, where we could build the brand, we could build the vibe, we could build, and I got creative freedom over at CCB, but, it was a brand that was George's. I mean, he's owned that thing for 20 years. And so, an opportunity to get into a space for about half of what it would cost to build it, and really start to build that new Liquid Gravity Brewing brand from the very beginning, right down the street from my house, or, in the same town that I grew up in, it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, and so it was no hard feelings. All the brewers who were at CCB are remaining there. I think that the team is built out to, continue to have success.
Some of the beers that you created at CCB and what you'll be able to do with Liquid Gravity when you're talking about, whose property's what and all that stuff. So are you comfortable breaking that down and kind of telling us what you're going to be allowed to do at Liquid Gravity and what you're not going to be allowed to do? How does this all work out?
Yeah, I honestly, they own the brand. So, like Lucky Day IPA they own that brand. They own, the intellectual property of the recipe. I'm not trying to make a Lucky Day IPA over there. I'm trying to make something better than Lucky Day IPA. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that the things that I've learned over the last 5 years, have taught me a lot about, recipe development and what works and what doesn't, and some of the kind of new applications of some of the really new school hops. And so I'm really excited to get in and to be able to kind of take all that information that I've learned commercially brewing over the last 10 years, more lately at CCB over the last 5, and taking those new techniques, those new processes, and those new hops that are available, and being able to just come up with something even more dynamic and exciting than I ever created.
It's something that's totally yours.
When you're your own boss,
you can do that.
You're your own boss.
Yeah.
You can make some pretty mind-blowing stuff and some pretty crazy stuff too.
Yeah, and we plan on it. I always say it's like if somebody wanted just a straight up IPA or a straight up hazy IPA or just a stout or a Vienna lager, they can go to CCB for that. And so, we're going to have a good classic West Coast IPA. We'll have a good classic, hazy IPA. We'll do a pale ale.
You got to do the ones that are selling. It's like, a lot of wineries want to make a white wine first because it doesn't have to age in barrels for a couple of years and get it right out to market. Mm-hmm. A lot of wineries want to do a Cab or a Chardonnay because they're very popular before you start playing with weird stuff. So you're going to do the IPAs, the pale ales, the real popular stuff. Is there a project that you're already thinking about in your mind?
I've got a list.
I think a Terrifico, right? The Pacifico, you made in a barrel, pretty much. And it's got the lime and the salt and the beer.
So tasty.
And I still love it. And is that something they still carry over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still make it.
So are there Terrifico type ideas that are already in your mind that you're thinking about that you can't wait to get into? I've
got a list of stuff. And we're gonna get weird a little bit. We're gonna have some fun with this brand. The first beer we're going to release is going to be called Single and Ready to Flamingo. I'm going to Photoshop one of my friends' faces onto some cartoon body floating in a flamingo floaty in a pool. We're going to do, some like pineapple milkshake IPAs and some imperial stouts at 13% with Mexican chocolate and cacao nibs and cinnamon and vanilla and
one
coconut.
Of my favorite beers that you've made at CCB, and I took a can of it for my stepdad, and we shared it one hot afternoon, which is strange because it was a stout beer, and it was the coconut stout.
Oh yeah,
the coconut stout that you made at CCB. You're gonna be able to make things like that?
You're now, just for clarification, was this like recent or a long time ago? This was
3-4 years ago.
So that was actually a coconut black lager.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's a distinction because it's stouts are typically very rich in body and full in body, and black lager is really black in color but very light in body.
I remember the alcohol content.
It's like 5% or something like that, 5.5%.
Okay, then I don't know what I drank. because this
was high octane.
Yeah, it was high octane because we sat there and we were like, ooh, okay.
It might have been deep dark.
Yeah.
That was a barrel aged beer. Barrel aged beers that go into like bourbon barrels. We'll end up with kind of a coconutty thing on it.
Okay.
But the only coconut beer we actually made was that coconut Schwartz. Although just recently we made one with coconut vanilla and it was like 12%.
Jeez.
But yeah, those beers are coconut's really, if you do it well in a beer, it's really wonderful. Mm-hmm. And if you don't,
is it hard to do well?
It depends what you're going for. I think, if you too much raw untoasted coconut, or if you try to use extract, you end up with it tasting like suntan lotion.
Oh, that would be very
And that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so by toasting it, you pull, more of that kind of rich caramelized, character out of the coconut.
How do you know what suntan lotion tastes like? Have you drank suntan lotion?
Haven't you?
No.
I'm just kidding.
When I was a kid, that coconut stuff? Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I was like, man, I want to try this.
Let me rephrase it.
I just picture young Jeremy there with a bottle of that Hawaiian spray, the bronzing spray.
It says it's 5% alcohol. Maybe if I drink enough of it.
Brendan Gough here, Liquid Gravity, the new brewery coming this fall over at the old Tappet location in San Luis Obispo. Santa Maria Brewing is there right now. He just acquired it and will be opening this fall. Have you heard from your peers, some of the other brewers? I mean, you were just listed, was it 2018 Brewer of the Year by the Central Coast Brewers Guild? Mm-hmm. Have you got any feedback from anybody yet there?
I just even tingles when you ask me about it. The outreach, the outpouring of support that I've got from, not just people in the community and friends that I've had for a long time, but brewers who have sort of, risked it all and put it on the line, for their own projects. Have been incredibly supportive and let me know what we can do for you. And, it's been humbling to see the response and, the support that we've gotten from both the community and the brewing community.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's been pretty cool.
With Liquid Gravity and Tappet, or buying the old Tappet facility, Tappet had a pretty robust distribution line. I mean, like you could go places. I remember going places, and I mean, knowing that Tappet is, it was a beer that was sold here, and it was
a beer
somewhat popular.
It was cold and carbonated.
They did what they could. They did what they tried to do, and but then I remember going other places like far from here, and seeing it in supermarkets there, and thinking, man, geez, that's kind of they're really extending their reach.
That can be a bad sign. I know how much beer we can make in that brew house, and it's a fair amount of beer. But once you start to see beer cast really, really, really wide, it often means that it's not selling super well locally.
Yeah. Which was the case with Tappet.
Or that there's been an expansion and that there's more beer available. Russian River's all over the place here now.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not because their beer's crappy. It's because
it took a long time to get it here.
It's because they built the brand new 250 barrel brew house and there's a lot more beer. Now, the numbers I'm looking at, that we can produce at our new facility, is a fair amount of beer. I would say if you ever find us out in Texas or New Mexico, that it's not selling well here, but we've got
that you moved,
or that we've moved
to a bigger space.
But we've got the capacity to make about 7,000 barrels. Not that means anything to anybody, but it's a decent amount of beer. It's enough for us to roll out with a distributor right away. And so you should start to see our beer here locally.
On taps at bars?
On taps at bars.
In stores?
We're going to do mostly draft.
Okay.
We're going to keep the can releases exclusive. We don't, supermarket shelves is where beer goes to die. I don't want to play the liquor store cabinet game. So, we're going to focus mainly on draft. We're going to get that stuff, basically everywhere we can on draft.
You have a canning line, didn't you say that?
We have a bottling line.
Oh, bottling line.
And then we also have a friend who owns a canning line that will do. Nobody, these days nobody wants IPA in bottles.
Right.
They all want the 4-pack cans with the cool label and the flashy art, and so.
Plus, why is that? Cans better than bottles because it'll last longer, right? You won't have the sun impact.
That's a complicated question. I would say, generally speaking, if you get them into the package with the same care, a can will last longer. But it's more difficult to get into the can.
I see.
So,
right, I see what you're saying. Like you could keep,
it's a bigger opening at the can.
Keep the carbonation a little bit better with the bottle because it's a smaller opening.
Smaller hole, so there's a less chance of oxygen getting in before it's capped. But once they're capped, can's better.
I see.
For what it's worth.
But what are you going to do with that bottling line that you have now? I mean,
that's what we're kind of trying to consider. I think what we'll probably do is just use it in limited capacity for some very kind of small runs on some of these big imperial stouts that we're talking about. So, 13% alcohol, coconut, vanilla, cacao nib, Mexican chocolate, something like that. And just even though that bottling line is way overbuilt for it, just do some limited runs. And if we ever get to a point where we're hit distribution and we're maxed out at capacity and we want to push that thing a little harder. But, for now, we're just going to use it in a pretty limited capacity.
Baby steps.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have some people that were asking some questions. One is, are you going to do food out there?
So, we will not have a kitchen. So our early plan, we've been talking to,
food trucks?
Yes, at some point. And so, our early plan is to try to find a relationship with the closest pizza place we can, which would be like either Nucci's or Village Host. And I know I've talked to Dan over at Village Host a little bit about this. What I'd like to do is find a relationship where we can put the menus of just one of those pizza places and guarantee them exclusivity, on having their beer, on having their menu available. And then in return, like, see if we could get, hey, I know delivery runs and pizza, and all, it takes like 45 minutes to an hour. But if we put your stuff exclusively and we can guarantee you some business every day, could we get delivery in 30 minutes? And so I think in the early days, we're going to go with a model similar to that, where we have something available that you can order through the bar, that will order it in, and it can be there in 30 minutes. And then once we start to establish, like, well, nobody comes on Monday.
Yeah.
And then, Tuesdays are kind of a hit. And we do some, trivia night on Wednesday and pack the place. And Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are crazy here. So now you can start to, have real numbers to give someone like a food truck. Because the worst thing in the world is because you got to pay a food truck. And the food truck comes out and they don't sell any food. And then they don't want to come back.
Yeah, sure.
And so in the early days, we're gonna kind of get creative to have food available. And then hopefully establish some numbers where we can start to get some more, more concrete idea of when people are going to be there.
Can't wait for this thing, man. It's going to be fun to see. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We've known you a long time, and so it's so exciting that you get to go do something.
And you make okay beer.
So I'm excited to see what you do with this.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Subscribe to the Jeff and Jeremy podcast now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. It's your Central Coast commute-friendly podcast.